Hello and welcome to Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Amanda Bowen. So happy you could join us today. We'll head straight into our hazardous weather. We have a winter weather advisory in effect for the Klondike Highway, including the town of Skagway in the northern panhandle. We're looking at 6 to 8 inches of snow today and tonight into Saturday morning, as well as gusty winds up to about 40 miles per hour. That winter weather advisory is going to be in effect through Saturday morning, so make sure you're aware of the impending snow, likely already having started in the Klondike Highway area, including Skagway. Going a little bit further north across the mainland, all of the yellow that you see here, in fact, all of the colors that you see here across the mainland are wind chill advisories and warnings. The yellow is wind chill advisories, and the red there on the central Beaufort Sea coast is a wind chill warning. So we are looking at cold temperatures already in place, but in combination with breezy conditions, we're looking at potentially dangerous wind chills. For the central Beaufort coast, we are looking at wind chills as down to about negative 65 degrees. And that's why that area is highlighted with a wind chill warning. That's going to be in effect through the day on Saturday. And the rest of the areas that you see in yellow, the rest of the Beaufort Sea coast, the northeastern Brooks Range, much of the eastern and central interior with the exception of the Fairbanks area, as well as portions of the West Coast, including Seward Peninsula and the Norton Sound area, all under wind chill advisories through the day on Saturday. Again, cold temperatures already in place in combination with breezy conditions, looking at feels like temperatures down to about negative 45 degrees for those advisory areas. And with that level of wind chill, you can get frostbite in as little as 10 minutes on exposed skin. So make sure to shorten your time periods outside and certainly dress for the cold and wind chills. Taking a look at what's causing all of this, looking at our satellite imagery, we can see not a whole lot in the way of clouds over the mainland area, but that's as can be expected with the cold temperatures in place. In fact, much of what you can see is just snow on the ground. Those moving clouds across the southern portion of the state are a weak low pressure system, as we can see here on our today's surface chart, that is bringing some clouds and snow into the area, but that's all south of the Alaska Range. From the Alaska Range northward, mostly clear skies with cold temperatures and breezy conditions, hence those wind chill advisories and warnings. So today we have that weak low pressure system in the Gulf that's going to be bringing rain to most of the panhandle, with snow in the higher elevations as well as the northern panhandle, hence that winter weather advisory for the Klondike Highway area, including Skagway. We can also see on our surface chart a strong low pressure system for the western Aleutians down to about 974 millibars, bringing some breezy conditions as well as rain showers to the western Aleutians. As we head into tonight, high pressure continues to develop and spread across the northern tier of the state. We are looking at continued very low wind chills, some snow showers developing potentially across the North Slope area, blowing snow across much of the rest of the area, much of the rest of the state, I should say, north of the Alaska Range, and even some freezing fog potential along the southern Chukchi coast. Further south in the state, that snow is going to start tapering off for the northern Gulf Coast and south central areas, but rain and snow continue across the panhandle. We're even looking at the chance for some heavy rain across the southern panhandle tonight as that warm front makes its way onshore, bringing that surge of moisture and warmer temperatures up from the south. Heading into Saturday, that low pressure system in the Gulf still hanging around, decreasing or increasing in pressure, I should say, decreasing in strength as we go forward in time, but still bringing some precipitation to the Gulf Coast from Prince William Sound eastward and southeastward through the Panhandle, although that's going to be turning more showery, especially for the Panhandle on Saturday. We have that stronger low pressure system moving into the western Bering there on Saturday. So behind that, we'll still see some rain showers in the Aleutians, and continuing high pressure across the northern part of the mainland with some snow showers for the North Slope area, blowing snow continuing to be possible for the Norton Sound coast, and still rather cold temperatures across much of the mainland on Saturday. For Sunday, we start to see a little bit of change across the mainland. We still have that high pressure in place, but it's starting to shift a little bit more south and east. So another cold day, but not as breezy as that pressure gradient starts to loosen across the west coast. Very weak low pressure system expected to be impacting the Panhandle on Sunday with continuing rain and snow showers. And we have our next strong low pressure system coming up into the central Aleutians from the south, and that'll be crossing into the Bering Sea. Looking at temperatures for Saturday morning, we're looking at lows in the 40s for much of the Panhandle, with 30s in the interior and higher terrain. For South Central, we're looking at 20s, and then our really cold, our much colder, I should say, temperatures across Southwest. We're looking at -1 degrees there at Iliamna, and even 10 all the way down at Chignik for Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, warming in the Panhandle up into the 40s, at least a few degrees above those low temperatures for Saturday morning, although with all the rain, don't expect a lot of warming during the day. So 40s to mid 40s for the Panhandle on Saturday. South Central looking like getting up into the 20s, and once again rather cold for the Southwest and Alaska Peninsula. McGrath only seeing a high temperature expected on Saturday afternoon of -1. Sunday morning, the entire area sees colder temperatures as that high pressure really starts to take hold of most of the state. We're still looking at 30s for the Panhandle, with Yakutat being the exception there at 25. And then we have teens and even some single digits for the Kenai Peninsula, with 9 degrees there at Kenai. Cold spot typically at Glen Allen, -6 there, and Iliamna looking at -6 as well. Sunday afternoon, just a few degrees of warming for the Panhandle, once again mid-30s to around 40 degrees, but the cold air really taking hold over South Central and the Alaska Peninsula. We're looking at 26 there for a high at Seward, 20 in Anchorage, 17 at Talkeetna on Sunday. As we head across the northern tier of the state, these are the cold temperatures that we're talking about that are going to be made to feel even colder by those breezy conditions. So negative temperatures well into the negatives for Saturday morning across the northern tier of the state. We're looking at -19 there at Wainwright, -17 at Kaktovik, and -14 at Fairbanks for Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, not a whole lot in the way of warming. We're still looking at -teens across the area. Warm spot there, -1 at Delta Junction, but we've got -15 at Bettles, -13 at Anaktuvuk Pass. Still very cold temperatures for Saturday afternoon. Sunday morning, getting even colder. Our cold spot there is Fort Yukon, -37 degrees. So add any wind to that and it'll feel even colder. And finally, Sunday afternoon, another cold day with negative temperatures across the board. Negative single digits for the North Slope and highs in the -teens for much of the interior. We've got our warm spot there at Nome with a +4, just eking out above 0 temperatures. And for Southwest Saturday morning, this is going to be a cold time period for Southwest, as well as portions of the Aleutians, even into the eastern Aleutians. We're looking at let's see, 25 there, 14 there at Cold Bay. So another cold day or cold morning. Heading into Saturday afternoon, we're only getting up into the teens and 20s, even for, let's see, Chignik there at 18 and single digits for much of Southwest. Sunday morning, same story basically. You've got still cold temperatures in place. -8 there at Bethel, also -8 for King Salmon, and into the teens as far south as Cold Bay. And Sunday afternoon, not a lot of warming still. We've got highs in the negative single digits across the interior Southwest, -1 there at Emonic.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
On to a look at your aviation weather. For Saturday morning, we've got IFR conditions along the North Gulf Coast and the northern panhandle. Also IFR conditions throughout portions of the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutians. Some MVFR conditions across the North Slope, but mostly VFR conditions, at least across most of the mainland for Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, we continue to see IFR conditions through the southeast mainland, northern panhandle, and also the terrain of the panhandle. Also, a couple of spots of IFR conditions in the Aleutians, and IFR conditions developing on the north side of the Brooks Range as well as the North Slope. Going into Sunday morning, we continue to see IFR conditions for much of the North Slope as well as the Panhandle and just a few spots in the Aleutians. But other than that, mostly VFR conditions across the entire mainland, other than some MVFR across the Wrangell St. Elias Mountains Sunday morning. And for Sunday afternoon, mostly VFR. We do still have IFR conditions across much of the North Slope and some more IFR conditions coming up from the south into the Aleutians with our next system. Pass conditions on Saturday, Anaktuvuk Pass looking like VFR conditions, but watch out for some IFR along the north entrance. Adigan Pass MVFR during the day on Saturday, also with some IFR conditions along the north entrance. Lake Clark and Merrill passes both MVFR in the morning, improving to VFR Saturday afternoon. Rainy Pass looking like VFR on Saturday, as well as Windy Pass VFR on Saturday. Isabel Pass starting the day MVFR on Saturday and improving to VFR Saturday afternoon. Mentasta Pass MVFR all day on Saturday. Tanita Pass starting the day at MVFR and improving to VFR Saturday afternoon, as well as Portage Pass starting at MVFR and improving to VFR by Saturday afternoon. Chilkoot and White Passes both looking like IFR through the day on Saturday. A look at our freezing levels shows us that surface freezing level south of most of the state, going through the eastern Aleutians up into the North Gulf and then across the Panhandle. We have a couple of warmer air intrusions, but not quite reaching any of the Alaska land areas. For icing on Saturday, we do have some considerable moderate icing expected over the Panhandle up through about Yakutat. That's going to be, again, considerable moderate icing above about 3,000 feet. And then a number of areas of isolated moderate icing above 3,000 feet for the North Gulf area, all the way up to about the Alaska Range. And then also for much of the Aleutians, isolated moderate icing above 4,000 feet. For our jet stream on Saturday, the main jet remains further south, but we do have a jet streak coming across the Aleutians, arcing in a clockwise fashion, 110 to 120 knots out of the southwest and west there. At 9,000 feet, we have strongest winds both in the western Bering, 50 to 60 knots going counterclockwise around a low pressure system there, as well as 50 to 55 knots in the central Gulf, well south of a low pressure system centered across the southeastern mainland. Looking like widespread 20 to 30 knots of wind out of the north and northeast across the west coast as well at 9,000 feet. At 3,000 feet, we have our low pressure systems in basically the same place, the southeast mainland, as well as west and even northwest of the western Aleutians. So our strongest winds are going to be on the north side of that low, north of the western Aleutians, so mostly impacting the Bering Sea as well as portions of eastern Russia. And then also winds up to about 50 knots, again going counterclockwise around the south side of that low pressure system in the Gulf. Also looking at some increased winds in southwest, about 45 knots out of the northeast. And finally, for turbulence, we have some isolated severe turbulence over the western Aleutians below about 3,000 feet. Also a number of areas of considerable moderate turbulence. We've got that below about 4,000 feet for much of the southwest portion of the state and west coast south of Norton Sound, and a small area of the southern Alaska Peninsula, also considerable moderate below 3,000 feet, as well as the Panhandle, considerable moderate turbulence below 3,000 feet on Saturday.
So my heart is definitely racing. I don't know about anyone else's. This is the stuff nerds dream of.
10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6,
It's gonna
5,
happen.
4, 3, 2.
That countdown you just heard? We'll get back to that in a minute. Last episode, we saw the epic launch of ICESat-2, NASA's newest state-of-the-art ice-observing satellite. But now that that's in orbit, the pressure to deliver results is on.
Between launch and, the first ground returns, took 17, 18 days or something like this. It's a time when you're quite nervous.
9 years ago, Dr. Torsten Marcus took over as the lead project scientist for ICESat-2 during a time when the mission needed a champion.
You start fighting for a mission over, for 9 years now.
So when ICESat-2 was turned on for the first time 18 days after it was launched, only then would the science team know if the whole thing had worked. And it did.
First of all, it's kind of emotional, right? Being here, ICESat-2 was developing for 9-10 years. Project scientist, you live the mission, right?
If it sounds like there's a lot of noise in the background, that's because Torsten is being interviewed from a plane 1,500 feet in the air. IceBridge was tasked with the job of bridging the data between the end of ICESat's mission and the beginning of ICESat-2, about a 9-year difference.
The goal is that it would run until ICESat-2 launched and then would have overlap with ICESat-2 as well, so we can get a really long, well-calibrated time series from IceBridge.
As the deputy project scientist for Operation IceBridge, Brick works closely with Torsten to make sure the two missions are syncing up.
The timing was everything during that mission, which was a real challenge because not only do we need to...
Basically what you need to take away is getting an airplane and a satellite in space to fly over the same flight path at the same time and collect matching data is really, really hard. IceBridge was tasked with two objectives: check the accuracy of ICESat-2's data over land ice and over sea ice. They were able to lock in the land ice data fairly quickly in the mission, but the sea ice data...
It was really tricky. We waited day after day. Do we fly the sea ice? It's still on our list.
7, 6,
It's gonna
5,
happen.
4, 3, 2, 1. Mark on the overpass 0435, 35 Zulu.
Here's what just happened. A plane 1,500 feet up and a satellite 308 miles up measured the same sea ice at the same time. This moment finally linked veteran mission Operation IceBridge's data to that of its new sister mission, ICESat-2. Two projects that, until now, were separate for nearly 10 years.
It's a very satisfying feeling because you do something that is meaningful and in the bigger picture, and yeah, it's very satisfying.
Our search for knowledge doesn't end here. Grace Follow-On and ICESat-2, the two satellite missions that launched this year, will continue to bring in incredible data for the foreseeable future. The steady drumbeat of campaigns in the field goes on, but most of all, the people who look for answers will never stop searching. And from our perspective, it's pretty clear why.
My favorite planet is the planet Earth.
What? Earth? Really?
The Earth, obviously.
Favorite planet in the solar system? Earth, right? We live on it. It's a really important one.
Favorite planet is Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Why?
when you look out at the other planets, they're absolutely fascinating. They've got all sorts of interesting systems going on. They've got dust storms. But then when you're on another planet, looking back at Earth, I mean, it's just incredible.
Whenever you go in different places, it looks so different, so amazing. It's just, I love planet Earth. It's just a very special planet. This is our home.
We've seen things far beyond the solar system. But even with all that, even the amazing things we've seen, one of the most amazing is the Earth itself.
It's got to be Earth. It's got to be Earth.
It's got to be here. I like the polar regions up here of Earth. Yeah, sorry. It's very boring.
Earth is good.
Earth is good.
We live here, it sustains our life.
I'm not going to turn my back on it.
It's got water, it's got ice, it's got vegetation. I mean, it's rich with life. And so studying Earth is a very, very rewarding career. And I think if we were on any other planet, we would be trying to get to Earth as quickly as we could.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. It's time for a look at the marine forecast. Starting with the sea ice edge, we're seeing the ice pack itself move a little bit south with north and northeasterly winds, but the ice edge is moving to the west. So if you look at a satellite image of it, it almost looks like it's turning a little bit. We'll continue to see northeast and easterly winds, which won't necessarily bring that ice edge all the way to St. Paul. It looks like it's between about 35 and 40 miles north of St. Paul at this point. On a typical year, there's about a 50-50 chance of that ice edge reaching St. Paul, but with it only being January 28th today and only being 35 to 40 miles away, it seems like it'll probably get there at some point before the ice maximum in April. Taking a look at our marine forecast for southeast for Saturday, we've got generally southerly winds, some southwesterly winds for the southern panhandle, or the eastern Gulf waters, I should say. Those southerly winds are going to be anywhere from about 15 to 30 knots, bringing seas up to 9 to 15 feet across the Gulf, and 3 feet for the northern inside waterways, much higher for the southern inside waterways where we'll have stronger winds, so 13-foot seas there. For Sunday across southeast, we start to see a bit of a wind shift to more northerly winds, at least for the northern inside waterways and the northern Gulf. We'll see winds pick up across the Lynn Canal area with winds to 30 knots, gusting to 45 knots out of the northwest. Saturday across south central, we are looking at winds mostly out of the north around 20 knots. The exception is going to be in the area between Kodiak Island and Kenai Peninsula near the Barrens. We're going to have that offshore gap flow, 35 to 40 knot winds, 11 to 12 foot seas there. Also possibilities of some gusty winds coming out of the Copper River Basin, 20 knots out of the northeast, gusting to about 35 knots. For Sunday, we see winds still out of the north in general, but coming down quite a bit. So even with those gap winds, still looking at offshore winds, but going down to about 30 knots, 10 to 15 knots elsewhere across the area. For the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island areas on Saturday, we've got westerly and northwesterly flow. Our strongest winds are going to be through Shelikof Strait, 25 knots, gusting to 40 knots. We've got seas anywhere from 9 to 10 feet on the Gulf side to dropping to about 4 feet on the Bering side of the peninsula. And heading into Sunday, we'll see pretty consistent winds, at least as far as speeds are concerned, 20 to 30 knots still, but shifting to out of the northeast and east on the Bering side and continued northwesterly flow mostly on the Gulf side. For the Aleutian chain on Saturday, we're looking at our strongest winds with that system that's going to be moving through the western Aleutians. So we'll see 45 knot winds for the western Aleutians with 20 to about 21 foot seas. Winds and seas quite a bit lower as we head east into the eastern Aleutians, 15 to 20 knots with 5 to 10 foot seas there. And on Sunday, we'll see the peak winds and seas shift quite a bit. We're looking at storm-forced winds around Atka and Nikolsky out of the east and northeast, 45 to 50 knots, whereas seas for the western Aleutians are going to be coming down a bit, 9 to 12 feet there. For Saturday along the west coast, we've got that northerly flow we were talking about that's been pushing the sea ice pack a little bit further south, 15 to 20 knot winds on Saturday, and increasing a little bit, especially along the sea ice edge, 20 to 30 knots there, just 10 knots out of the northeast in Norton Sound. For Saturday for the Arctic coast, we've got westerly flow along the north slope and northerly flow through the Chukchi Sea, 15 to about 30 knots. And for Sunday, pretty similar pattern, 15 to 30 knots along the north slope and just 5 to 15 knots for the Chukchi Sea. Recapping what we're looking at for tonight, we've got wind chill advisories in effect for much of the mainland from the Alaska Range north, as well as a winter weather advisory in effect for snow for the Klondike Highway area. Thanks so much for watching Alaska TV Weather.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.